In what city? Where are you?
I'm in New York, Joe.
New York. Okay. And Marie?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah, Norland, where are you?
I'm out here in Chicagoland, Kane County, St. Charles.
Good job.
That's great. And Jeanette, where do you hail from?
I am in Indianapolis.
Oh, nice. And Chris, I don't know if you can hear us yet, but where are you calling in from? So maybe Chris can't hear us yet. And how about you, Suzanne? Where are you calling from?
I'm also Hyde Park, upstate New York, 2 hours north of the city.
Excellent. And Mike, I don't think you've gone yet.
And I am also in Hyde Park, New York, same place.
And I am in Los Angeles.
I'm going to say that's a nice view. And then Coletta, looks like you are from where?
Oh, Fort Worth, Texas.
Welcome. Well, this is truly a national meeting. I love it. And I'm calling from Denver, Colorado. So welcome, everyone. We're delighted to have you and really honored to have our panel. And so folks can see this recording afterwards. It'll be posted online after we're done. We're focused today on a fourth principle of the EOC. And while it is really directed to businesses, we're really happy to have people from a variety of backgrounds today, because the EOC principles of business are really applicable to your life in whatever kind of organization you work in your neighborhoods, your communities, because first and foremost, it's about relationships. And today's topic is goes by the color green. And as you'll see today, it's because it's what gives life to us. As we think about our places of work or wherever we are in our communities. And, you know, the first area, of course, is quality of life. In other words, how is it that we can flourish wherever we are? How do we help the people in our organizations flourish? And, you know, there are some very concrete ways, and I'm really thankful that our speakers today will get into how they do that for the people in their organizations. But one of the things I did want to share is a tool that I think,
Oh, good.
yeah, a tool that we've developed to help folks.
There it is.
Let's see, can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So I think one of the challenges as we think about how to measure or think about things like quality of life and happiness and relationships is, how do you know when these things are happening? And so this particular tool is designed to get especially business leaders thinking about how it plays out in their context. And so as you can see, the questions are about meeting specifically for the purpose of maintaining good relationship, number one. And number two is quality of life is certainly about what happens at work. And so we want to make sure that we have policies and are organized in a way that provides great working conditions and also a living wage and fair benefits. Third and fourth, there's really leaders need to be setting the pace, both in terms of listening to concerns within the company as well as celebrating with members of their teams. And also, You know, I added this one because as I've worked for a number of years with small businesses, and I think one of the hardest things for them is to combine two seemingly opposite things. First of all, how is it that you maintain your business in a way to keep your employees in a way that allows you to continue to to keep your employees and in a way that allows you to flourish as a company. And so you do need to pay attention to both revenue and profitability because that allows you to reinvest for growth. But at the same time, it's also important to be concerned about, as number 6 says, the holistic health of each employee. Certainly, whatever happens in their whole life is going to affect what happens to them in your business. And also, it's not enough, I think, just to think about our employees' life at home and in the business, but we live on this planet and it's really important to steward what happens to the planet. Because as we know, that impacts the long-term viability of whatever it is we're doing. As we think about our employees and, their kids and grandkids, we want to make sure that things are going to be good for them in the future. So as we think about this topic of quality of life, happiness, and relationships, there's a lot of dimensions to it. And these are dimensions that can be measured, whether you do it through a 5-point scale or whether it's through conversation. There are tools that we can use to help grow this. Recently, I heard a really helpful conversation about this notion of public happiness. In other words, what is it that people in communities are looking for to thrive? There's a researcher at the University of Lisbon who's done a lot of research on public happiness, and she found that, not surprisingly, even in poor communities, the things they care most about are a sense of gratitude, sharing food together, having helpful relationships among neighbors. They're things that take attention and time to focus on relationship, but they don't cost a lot of money. So just an encouragement that no matter where you are, no matter how flourishing you are financially or not, there's always the focus on relationship to create happiness, both for individual employees, members of our organizations, but also for our broader community. And wherever we go, however we live, we can share that broadly. So what I'd like to do is turn the floor over to our panelists, and I'll give Mike and then Andy, Suzanne, and Joe a chance to introduce themselves in turn. And as questions come up, feel free to enter them into the chat box. And when we come to the discussion portion of our webinar, we'll be sure to answer them, and you can dialogue further with the speakers. So Mike, please take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, John. My name is Mike, and I am from New York City. I was born and raised, and I know the EOC for many years because it's also part of the larger group, the Focolare movement, and I know the Focolare since I was very, very young. I am a teacher by profession. I've taught for over 20 years. After that, I moved into the college arena, and I became a college academic advisor, and I did that for 5 years. For about 30 years, I have been working with the young adults, youth and young adults of the Focolare movement. So it has given me a great chance to interact, to build these relationships, and to help them to grow. So currently, I'm the coordinator of a youth center here at our headquarters in New York. And we simply create programs for youth and young adults, programs that help them to grow, to learn, to thrive. And there are many relationships that last over time, but really ones that have an impact. And I wanted to mention just a couple of examples where I have seen the quality of life, even though it's not a business, but the quality of life that has grown through relationships that I was surprised myself. And they stem from my last job, employment, which was in Texas. And there I was an academic advisor. And my experience, my work there, helped me to develop, beginning relationship with students to help them with their college decisions. They were very needy, and so this relationship kept over time throughout the year and the year after. And what happened was that they found a sense of trust. They found myself, someone who would help them. And so that naturally continued. And today I'm in touch, continue to be in touch with a few still answering questions regarding college decisions, coursework to take, and also life experiences. And I mentioned one young adult, for example, who to this very day, we continue to be in touch, just talking about different situations that we're facing in the world. He's married, has one son, and the relationship that was born and continues really opens us up to learn new things. So I noticed that one day that he has some knowledge in the area of finance. So I told him of my work with young adults, and I encouraged him. I said, couldn't you reach out and meet with these young adults and give a little lesson on finance? And we prepared, and that took place about a week ago. And it went very well. What was great was his response, because he had never done that before. He would not have done
coming every day
alone.
because it's a
But,
big job. But let
he
me tell
really
you,
felt,
you don't hear that AC unit outside.
he really felt that he benefited from that experience. And he was happy that he was able to give of himself.
Yeah.
In that group, he met
But
different
these are tremendous.
young
These are
people
really,
from
really
different
big.
walks of life.
One second, Mike. Maybe. Oh yeah. Okay. Now they muted themselves. Okay. Go ahead.
He met young people of different walks of life, older, younger, some that have experience in personal finance, some that have none. And he was very happy to learn about those young people in different situations from different countries. So there was an ongoing of relationships that also will continue because they need help, and he can help to answer those questions that they may have. Another example comes to mind is another young adult, also in Texas, who's younger, and he stayed in touch, but we don't talk so much about college because he left college scene, but more about everyday life. And when the pandemic began, he became very scared and very nervous. So he would reach out to just ask, basic questions, just to have some guidance on how to live everyday life. And I saw there, even the relationship that was being built, that continued to be built, had an impact. And it gave him trust. There was hope, and gave him an ability to face each day. And so he was very happy as well, because he had someone there that he could reach out to. And so these are just two examples of the impact that I have seen and I see from day to day, just of building relationships, maintaining relationships. And yes, I can say it's not a business, but we can see the quality of life. We can see people just become happy, whether they're in a school situation, a learning situation, or a working situation. And I still to this day remain very impressed by what we can do, what maintaining relationships can do for others. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. That was some really powerful examples of how, as folks are generous, you've been generous with your time, as one young man gave generously of his financial knowledge it built relationship, it built knowledge. It really, classic case of 1 + 1 = 3, right? So thank you for sharing, Mike.
Sure.
And then let's see, Andy, would you like to go next?
Sure. Let's do it. So my name is Andy Moraes. I work at Fordham Law School, running an institute that focuses on the intersection between religion and law, specifically on how religious values are integrated or not in the work that we do as lawyers. So here comes the fact that I'm a lawyer, and in that environment, how do I come to the economy of communion, right? Also, similarly to what Mike shared, I happen to know the Focolare movement for quite a few years. So my first encounter with the economy of communion was through the Focolare movement. Then coming here to Fordham, also it was already part of how the center worked with the principles of the economy of communion. And I think it's just natural, that connection, thinking that also Fordham, being a Jesuit university, is very connected to the reality of value relationships and connection, especially forming the whole person. So another aspect is that I'm also privileged we are all privileged here at Fordham to be located in New York City. So we operate within a very diverse community that continuously challenges us to engage in dialogue across differences. As a team, we are a very small team. In its core, we are talking about 3 faculty members and 2 administrators, obviously in contact with the larger law school community, university community, in collaboration between various departments. So I can say definitely that that's how we operate. Annually, we take the time to do a working retreat, for example, and brainstorm together the programs we want to host and develop during the academic year. And through the year, whenever we need to reassess a goal, make a decision, it is in our practice to reconvene, share perspectives, and decide together what is really the best step to take. Not that I'm trying to say that that is the easiest way forward or even the most efficient one, because you are taking time to really value the opinion of your colleague, and therefore it might not be the fastest way. However, it privileges relationships and creates this environment that I, for example, want to work on, an institution that I want to be part of, right? And so that's how I would describe the way that we work. Then working in higher education in a law school, I also have the opportunity to help students not only to think through stimulating topics, but also to develop leadership skills that will be crucial to their careers. With that purpose, for example, a few years ago, we decided to provide an opportunity for students from a diverse religious backgrounds to come together and work in developing programs for other students. We are talking about a group of 6 to 8 students, usually very competitive, very high achieving young adults, that we ask them to use this methodology in value collaboration, trust building, active and engaging listening skills, to use their curiosity, but with the ability of asking questions of clarification with a very deep respect for the person in front of them. And you might be asking, why are you sharing that? I'm sharing that because we were working with this group when the pandemic hit. And the reality, as we knew it, changed completely. At the very beginning of March, the university canceled all events, moved all its activities online. And so there were many challenges that we had to face after that. Stress to adapt to a new reality in a very short time, including hours of e-learning, difficulties in balancing commitments and one's health. Some students had problems with rent, with basic needs. So as a law school community, we create a fund, for example, and students could apply to receive financial help if they needed. However, that was not the only problem either. People were also living in small apartments, maybe having difficulties with connection, with lack of proper devices to follow their classes. They were also feeling extremely isolated. And here is where all connects, right? In a sense, one student from the group I mentioned before volunteered to take on the responsibility of offering an open hour on Zoom, meaning that weekly we would host a Zoom meeting with the only goal of getting together and providing students with an opportunity to connect with their peers. And depending, and in this whole experience, and for this example, depending on how you define success, this program could be described as a very unsuccessful program for the number of people who responded and participated. However, if you define success for the quality of the relationships that this project created, then maybe the result could be different. And maybe I can tell you that actually it was a very successful endeavor. For example, after one of these conversations, a student felt inspired and went on to write an article on the intersection between individualism, religion, and what he called racial sin. When we can encourage our students to create, to innovate, and take action for social change, that for me is a success. And there are still many uncertainties and questions like, is it possible to maintain the quality of our relationships in a mainly virtual working environment? Those are questions that I also pose myself, right? My personal experience is that my one-on-one interactions multiplied, and I am impressed by the creativity that is coming out. However, I'm also concerned and personally very alert to my daily schedule because it is very easy now to enter in a sort of activism. In other words, you never stop working really, right? You're always connected and you almost like you're expected to be always available. So I'm reassessing my schedule weekly, even day by day lately, to be able to stop and spend, for example, 15 minutes contemplating nature or going for a walk. And also that balance is hugely, I think, connected to the economy of communion because we want to bring our best to work and provide our best for society. But to do so, we also need to take care of ourselves and take care of the others that work with us. So that's what I'm trying to do. And John, I hope that I answered your initial question, but I'm gonna put a hard stop right here and be open to whatever comments you might have afterwards.
Andy, you brought up so many good points. I don't know where to begin, but I think, you know, your closing comment about self-care, that was so helpful, I think, because as I talk to business owners, one of the challenges they face in this pandemic is their work has more than doubled, right? They're trying to figure out how to make sure that their employees are doing well, or they're planning ahead for whatever whitewater rapids of financial uncertainty their businesses are facing. So self-care is so important. Also, you know, I think in a business context, it's so easy to focus on a saying I hate, time is money. What about relationship is money? Because if you don't have trust, if you don't have good relationships, it's going to really limit the kind of creativity that, for example, your one of your students brought to the table in creating a whole new article from the experience that he or she had. So really appreciate a number of things that you shared that have application both for a university context, but also for any organization that's part of a larger community, and every business is part of a larger community, right? Yours happens to be Fordham University and the broader New York community, and the challenges that students are having to face with paying for rent and staying. So, so thank you. I didn't mean to go on so long, but now let's get Suzanne telling us a bit about Living City.
Mhm. Thank you. My name is Suzanne. I'm originally from Germany. I'm a journalist by profession and I have a master in science of communication. And since 6 years, I'm the director of Living City magazine. We are a monthly magazine published by the Focolare that produces 11 numbers per year, 32 pages. Don't know, maybe you're familiar with that. This is our August issue. We feature also a couple of other products, such as the Cube of Peace and all the other cubes. You may know the Company Cube or the Earth Cube that try to apply the gospel-based art of loving in different fields, and also a couple of books. As a media business, we need to be creative and we have deadlines to meet. So that already is a stressful combination. And we are a small staff. We do everything, also marketing, social media, webinars, and we are only 5 people full-time, including me, 2 part-timers, and some people that help us on a voluntary basis, mostly proofreaders and writers. We all want to adhere to the spirituality of unity that animates the EOC. So that means we all try to focus on our relationships among us. And we try to start over when we had a difficulty. And together we want to build a work atmosphere of trust. However, while this might sound like heaven, we are still on earth. We are very different among us because among our staff, we come from 5 different cultures, 5 different countries. And we communicate very differently, besides having different opinions. As a German native, I'm very straightforward in expressing my opinion, which can seem rude to other cultures. My assistant editors are American, and they are both willing also to follow, but also to question my sometimes philosophical approach to certain topics. Learning how to understand each other and accept our diversity is a fundamental step for our relationships. As a director, I try to listen to everyone. I try to accommodate also the necessities, but I also feel the responsibility to challenge my staff to reach their full potential. That means that we do not aim at the fastest solution or that everyone does only what they are best at, but trying to get better at tasks someone was not so comfortable with at first to develop growth in the different areas of our profession. We also try to distribute our workload evenly. That means that I'm ready to chime in when my coworkers have a lot on their plate. And on the other hand, especially towards the monthly deadline, I feel all the support when I need to finish something. With the pandemic, some things changed, obviously. Usually, only our graphic director works remotely from Pittsburgh. And during the pandemic, 3 of us were working from home. It was a challenge, but thanks to Zoom, we managed to stay in touch and meet online. And I always felt to give the precedence to say, better one Zoom meeting more to connect than just leaving something or deciding something only with part of the staff. We also have regular meetings among the staff where we share what's going on in the different departments, like editorial, distribution, finances. And we also try to develop our products further, expand from the printed magazine and books to videos, webinars, and podcasts. 2 to 3 times a year, we take a full day as a work retreat. Like everyone shares about the status of their work and ideas how to develop Living City. We create the agenda together so that everyone can bring up topics that need to be addressed. To think outside the box, we also move physically outside our office, which helps us to be detached from the day-to-day business. these days are always a step ahead in our relationships. However, our relationships don't stop among our staff. Since most of our daily work is reaching out to people who can be interviewed or who can write an article, who give a feedback or collaborate on another level with us, also these relationships have to be built, improved, and rebuilt. Maybe a reader is upset about an article, or a writer doesn't agree with the necessary cut. We try to understand them and open up a dialogue, ready to be changed. I remember particularly one person who agreed to write a column, but the first installment didn't meet my expectation. So I was wondering, should we look for another writer? But then I decided to reach out to him and explain what, in my opinion, was missing in the text. Talking together was an important moment for the writer to understand the specific approach of building unity that we at Living City want to take. When meeting among us, when I'm in the attitude of listening, I also receive the gift that I am made aware of the mistakes that I made. While it hurts, it's a gift to be able to improve and to start over. These moments also help us to get us know better and to find ways to build Living City together.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. And, you know, I'm sure people would love to learn more about the cubes. Do you have a couple of comments about how people might use these? And maybe you could also enter a link in the chat of how they can access the cubes.
Sure. Of course, this is on you, it's the Earth Cube. I
Ah,
want to do that. You can all order and learn more about them on our website.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and Suzanne, likewise, there were so many good points. I don't know where to start, but I'll ask some follow-up Q&A for some of them. But one thing I appreciated is you're saying, you know, listening is such an important part of the process of making a great product, but more importantly, helping to maintain the unity among your staff, or unity with a writer who maybe is falling short of what the article needs. And also appreciated, because it's hard for leaders, I think, to say, I want to listen so that I can learn and make changes myself. And I think learning and growing from the top down, modeling that is so important, because the organization, at least my experience is organizations can only go as far as the leaders go. And so if the leader's willing to grow and listen and create an atmosphere of trust, that does so much towards building the kind of company that has resilience. And you gave a great example also of cross-training and expanding the skill set of each member of your team. You know, as a business consultant, that's another one of the best practices I love hearing about. So I'm glad you shared that as well. Well, thank you, Suzanne. And let's see now, Joe, we'd love to hear about what you and May do with your pharmacy.
Yes, thank you, guys. So I will start by saying that my wife May and I, we have a retail pharmacy here, a small store in Los Angeles, in a suburb of Los Angeles, not close to, not far from the ocean. It's called Playa because the town is called Playa del Rey. And we've had it for 11 years. And I can tell you, like, talking about relationships, I'll speak first about my relationship with my wife. You know, it's definitely a blessing, and I'm very happy that we work together. But it's at the same time, it's not easy to be 24 hours with a person, and we talk about business and home and all that. I remember when we opened the business, my brother sent an email to all our friends saying, Joe and May opened the pharmacy, please pray for their marriage. thankfully, we're still together. And, but things definitely, if we don't pay attention, um, it can be challenging. But when we started the business, really from the get-go, we wanted to include all the community. You know, for example, so from the get-go, we wanted to live that that universal sentence that do to others what you like others do to you. Also because it's accepted in all culture, all religions, and we translated it as a marketing tool by saying the following: come see for yourself, you will be treated like family. And we really meant it to treat everybody, every employee, every customer, every vendor as a family member. And I remember something from the time when we opened. We had a customer that she was quite demanding, and usually when people would tell me, why do you still want to help her, you know? And I would say, just, you know, our motto is we'll treat people like family. And to me, I say that she's like an ant, maybe an obnoxious ant. And what do you do with an obnoxious ant? Well, you still love her. So when this customer would be coming towards the pharmacy, everybody was hiding, and they would call me, tell me your aunt is here, and then I would go help her, and then and little by little, even if I was not at the pharmacy, they would come, they would help her, and they would tell me, Joe, your aunt was here, and we helped her. So this is just an example for me was that touched me, how really, you know, by doing something very simple, the whole team, you know, chipped in, and that relationship became better. Now for the rest, I'm going to share with you a 3-minute video that my wife and I we recorded for an earlier meeting, where we stress how this the unity among us is really the source of many things. So let me see if I can share the screen. So John, it says host is disabling part. You need to allow me to share screen, or if you have the video, you can share it yourself. You're not.
Yeah, I do have the video ready, Joe. So I'll.
Yeah, go ahead and share it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it. Can everybody see the video?
Yes.
Very good.
In Playa del Rey, California, and we both work there. We are May and Joe Shahade. We have a pharmacy in Playa del Rey, California, and we both work there. From day one, we decided that our CEO would be Jesus in our midst, in the sense that as much as possible, any business decision would be taken when we are both united in his name and detached from our own ideas. So when the pandemic hit, we naturally turned to our CEO for advice and inspiration. For example, a big part of what we do these days is to take extra time to listen to the most vulnerable, like the elderly, very sick, parents with young children, and the lonely. They are understandably very worried about their lives. While we do not have the magic pill yet, we try to be Jesus for them and be attentive to their needs.
We also needed to pay attention to our employees, understand their anxieties about their families and working in a retail environment, and accommodate each one as much as possible. One in particular had a major breakdown. We took turns listening to her. She's not religious, but asked for our prayers, saying that God listens to us. We assigned to her a task that will not stress her more. And recently we allowed her to work a little bit from home to help her recover. The pandemic also heightened the stress level between us and our coworkers. Lately, I've been in that position. The first necessary step was to forgive and start over. One particular time, I felt Jesus was asking me to do more than forgiving. He wanted me to love and pray for that person. After I made that step, I understood the wisdom behind what Jesus wants us to do. In my heart, this person became like a sister, and a new relationship was born.
Many of you know the cube of love. Well, in business, we also have the cube of business. And one side of it says, competitors can be friends too. We remember that when the pandemic started, one competitor had taken away some business from us in the past, so I was reluctant to check with them. However, wanting to listen to our CEO, I called and asked how they're doing and exchanged some best practices during this crisis. He wanted to start a new service that we provide. So I helped him get started, and when I needed advice on another issue, he was more than willing to share his experience. Finally, we can say that for us, managing a business during the pandemic, humanly speaking, was like flying a plane while assembling it at the same time. However, Jesus in our midst, our pilot and CEO, has guided us and given us the 100-folds. He's definitely a keeper.
Any comments, Joe?
Well, definitely, I would say definitely this has been our experience, but I would also want to add, that things are not always rosy, things, we have on a daily basis, there are challenges. I'll share with you just simply my latest challenge now is that now that we're getting into a new normal with the staff, and so yeah, last week I dedicated myself to listening to every one of the staff, and I did not finish. And I was shocked to hear so many challenges that I was not aware that because of how people are living at home, their challenges at home, the challenges at work, the lack of communication that is happening because of the pandemic, um, things are surfacing, and I am now in a position to what do I do? What do I do? So just listening to each one. And one employee told me, Joe, I feel that I want you to have my back, like whatever I'm doing, and this is just my new challenge. Maybe in a couple of weeks I'll tell you, So now we're going to start communicating better, find ways to make these relationships grow and understand each one, and go from there, and we grow. This is one.
Well, thank you, Joe. That was really wonderful, very helpful. Especially, I think we think listening isn't doing very much, but in fact, like you said, as you listen to your employees, it really builds a sense that of confidence that you and May have their back. And I think too, as you shared about really putting yourself out there with a competitor and keeping that attitude of love and really listening to Jesus, your CEO, that really made a difference in terms of, I think your ability to really view the competitor as a person, as a friend, not as an enemy. And in business, it's so easy to very quickly make somebody an enemy, whether it's a competitor, a vendor, a cranky aunt who's a customer, right? There's metaphorical aunt. So I think as we view people the way Jesus does, it's amazing, the change that happens in us. And I appreciated too May's story about her own transformation as she prayed for somebody she was having difficulty with. So really appreciate what you all have shared. Well, what I'd like to do, we just have a few minutes remaining, but I do want to open it up to any questions from those of you who are listening in, for any of the speakers or speakers. If you have particular questions for one another, feel free to pose them. You know, one, as people are thinking about questions that they might have, one that occurred to me for either you, Suzanne, or Joe, or both of you, I think as business leaders, you're thinking about so many different things, and you folks have talked so beautifully about what you do to deepen relationships. But as owners or leaders, you have to manage to a budget and to try to make sure that your business stays afloat and profitable. So just wondering, what tips might you have for other business owners about keeping those challenges in balance?
I mean, someone could think that when you focus on relationship or you listen or you talk things through, you lose time because sometimes it costs a lot of time. Our experiences maybe because also as a creative workers, we focus on inspiring each other, on talking things through. So when there's something in the relationships among us that doesn't work, also the ideas don't come. Instead, if we focus on putting relationships in order again, then usually we also have the right idea on how to follow up with our ideas or with projects that we have. I remember only one incident also from the pandemic that we have a lot of bulk orders from parishes. With the pandemic, they all stopped. We try to be proactive and reach out to them, but also one parish where we had an incident before because we built them twice and we apologized, they stopped immediately. But we really also said we go the extra mile. And when things came back to normal here in New York and the parishes were opening again, they were among the first ones also to say, yeah, we want to get our 40 copies back. So be it among us, also with our clients, my experience is that relationships always pay off also, again, in the end, in a monetary way.
Thank you, Suzanne. Joe, any additional comments?
Well, I will answer it in a different way, with the way that that how sometimes doing things in a difficult thing as a business owner, actually it brings the hundredfold. So once we had a difficult decision to let go of an employee, and the reason we found out, even though she was a very good employee, we found out that she was you know, stealing some, even those small things from the store, and she was doing it like in a very light way, but that was a no in our, you know, policy, that if she does this. However, she was a single person, and we knew that her income was very limited, and we wanted to do the right thing, which is to get rid of her, but we worried about her. And then after a couple of weeks, we decided to sit down and talk with her and see what comes up. And the day I wanted to talk with her, she called me and she says, "Oh, I also have something to tell you." And then while I was ready to tell her that we're letting you go, she told me, "Joe, look, I found a different business opportunity, and I would like to take that other business opportunity." And when she said that, in my heart, I was very happy. I knew that God took care of her already, and then I smiled, and I told her what I was going to tell her. and she cried, and she really, she apologized, and she has done it many times, but she really, that was really, she, even though she was not very religious, but at that time she felt God's love for her, because if we would have let her go, it would have been very difficult for her to find another job. So basically, to me, and then she left, and we remained friends for a long time, and that told me that by putting the relationship first, her, maybe in that case, not our finances became better, but her finances became better, and she's a better person, and we keep staying friends together.
Thank you, Joe. It reminds me of what one of the EOC leaders has told me, is that a principle of EOC business is to expect providence to show up. And so he says, there's even a saying, providence strikes again. So the sense that when we are patient and put relationships first, it gives God room to show up. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
There's a question. I appreciate this question, Norlin, for everyone. So if any of the panelists, or actually any of you on the call, have an answer, this would be great. How is the economy of communion collaborating with other very aligned movements? And he lists local living economy, asset-based community development, etc. So anybody want to respond to Norlin's question? I'll mention a couple things that I've been exploring since starting as the coordinator for EOC North America. Is there are groups out there that I think have some wonderful shared values. In fact, there's a group that I'm privileged to be working with, and one of the commissioners, Elizabeth Garlow, is one of the folks heading it up. It's called the Shared Ownership Group, and their focus is around co-ops and expanding the cooperative movement through groups like, I believe it's called the National Business Cooperative Association, or something like that. I've attended conscious capitalism meetings. I'm also aware of groups that are what are known as B corporations that are somewhat similar in values. So those are a few of the ones I'm aware of, but I'm sure there are many more that others of you have had experience with.
I can say that a couple times when I attended national, we have annual national meetings for the EOC, and we always invite to these meetings other organizations that have principles like that match ours, and we learn from them and we try to collaborate with them. But I also believe that we still can do better. We can join forces. There is a lot to do in that sense.
I was going to say thank you, and also Norlin, if you have other ones you'd like to. Oh yes, www.community-wealth.org. So Norlin just mentioned that that's another resource, and really appreciate your passing that along to us.
Sure, you're very welcome. This is a group, I'm not directly affiliated with them, but Community Wealth is a project of the Democracy Collaborative, which has been working for years and years on uniting various silos within the economy side of this equation, kind of the economy of well-being. They're also passionate about my life work, which is deliberative democracy, and not as much so. And what I'm trying to get them more interested in is the economy of communion is a lot closer to the Charter for Compassion International's culture of compassion movement that really centers on grounding that communion in the cultural, relational side before we can even think about the economic and political empowerment of community.
Well, that's great. What was the name of the organization you just mentioned, Norlin?
Well, Charter, and I can put it out there as well, so we don't have to worry about typing it. It'll be easier. Let me just, Charter for Compassion International is one of the, about a dozen organizations that we're trying to bring together under one umbrella, collective impact initiative that we can build a significant funding engine for. That's my other little semi-life work. So I just put it out there, charterforcompassion.org. They have over 2 million people worldwide, and their mission just dovetails exactly with the Focolare. I'm also part of what's called missional ecumenism, John Armstrong's ecumenical initiative, and he's worked very, very tightly with Focolare for many, many years. He wrote a book called Costly Love a couple of years ago that essentially just, you talk about Jesus in the midst as kind of a mantra almost. He's essentially written an entire book on the idea of agape and loving your neighbor, which I'd recommend anybody, if you get a chance to get it from the library, to read that. But this missional ecumenism movement is just about uniting everyone trying to follow Christ, whether they're Orthodox, Catholic, or Protestant. And what I love about Focolare is that they're also taking an interfaith and beyond. They very, very willing to work with someone with no religious affiliation whatsoever, and I admire that greatly.
Well, thanks, Norlin. I'd mention also the work of the Center for Action and Contemplation that was founded by Father Richard Rohr in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is another very helpful ecumenical group. I'm privileged to be one of the TAs for their programs there, so it's, I think, very much in line with what we're trying to do in the EOC, as well as some of the other groups you mentioned, so thank you. Well,
you're welcome.
I just realized we're already out of time, but I want to thank, first of all, our panelists, Mike, Suzanne, Indy, Bill, and all of our guests today. And just want to invite everybody to come to the next EOC webinar on September 2nd, and we'll be covering another one of the principles as it applies to life and business. So thank you everyone for coming, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John, and everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too.